Well, today the Air Force explained last year's crash that claimed the lives of 3 airmen stationed in Fairchild. A chain of events from a plane malfunction to crew training and experience contributed to the crash, according to a report released today. Now, the crash happened last May 3rd in Kyrgyzstan. It claimed the lives of Captain Tyler Voss, Captain Tori Pickney, and Tech Sergeant Trey Mackey. KXLY4's Ian Colt working for you to explain this lengthy investigation. He joins us now live in the newsroom with more. Ian?
And Nadine, the Air Force says it took 10 months to release this investigation because the events of that 11-minute flight were so complex. They're saying this crash will cause a training overhaul for many of their pilots. With slides and pictures of the crash site and parts of the plane, Brigadier General Stephen ARQUIETTE led media and airmen through what happened last May 3rd. He says soon after that KC-135, named Shell 77, took off, it had a slight drag to the right. Crew members tried to fix it by using the rudder to steer it back to level, but it didn't help, and the plane went into a Dutch roll. It's a type of motion where the aircraft wags its tail while rocking from side to side.
The yawing motion comes back to the left. The left wing now has more relative wind over it, and it begins a turn to the left. And this situation just goes back and forth in an oscillatory manner until it's either dampened out or it'll grow into a more severe case, which is what it did in this case here. Eventually,
the Dutch roll became so violent at such high speeds, the tail of the plane ripped off.
The balance is provided by the tail section. So as the tail section is now removed, the natural tendency for the airplane is to pitch down. And at this point, the airplane, once the tail section left in its entirety, the airplane pitched down in approximately 82 degrees nose low.
The events caught on tape by witnesses show what happened next. In the extreme dive at 10,000 feet, the right wing came off and leaking fuel caused an explosion. And at 2:48 local time, the plane hit the ground.
We have those 6 factors all coming together, but there were portions with which the crew, had they taken the proper actions, most likely would have prevented this outcome.
Retired Lieutenant Colonel Dale STORR watched the briefing with us to help explain. A 28-year veteran of the Air Force who flew KC-135s for 17 years.
I'm convinced of that it was an aircraft malfunction that was aggravated by the autopilot and may have been aggravated by some crew inputs, but only because they didn't recognize that it was a Dutch roll.
Which is very hard to recognize that in the cockpit?
It can be. It's, you know, the problem is we've only been taught to see it in the simulator. And as the accident investigation report said, the simulator doesn't do a very good job of presenting the Dutch roll to our students. So we need to improve that, and they are.
This morning, Fairchild Base Commander Colonel Brian NEWBERRY commented on the investigation.
They were an absolutely qualified crew, but they were a young crew, and they just were not, they were ill-prepared to handle that. Were there different decisions that other pilots might have made? Perhaps. But for this crew, and many other pilots would have made the same decisions, and they did the best.
The Air Force is making changes. All KC-135 pilots will now go through extensive training on this exact situation. Simulator software and flight manual language will be updated to prepare crews as well, to ensure a tragedy like this never happens again.
Unfortunately, there was mechanical anomalies that did not set up our crew for success. And for 11 minutes, our crew worked as a team to try to fight back those forces and make a difference. And for them, they were trying to be there for their receivers downrange, taking care of soldiers on the ground.
Colonel NEWBERRY says Fairchild will remember the fallen airmen once again this May 3rd, when they'll also unveil a monument dedicated to them.